everyone, this is Helloangel.design. Today I'm going to show you how to make a top with sleeve and the ruffle on the sleeve head. As you can see right here, I have cut my fabric ready. You should do the same. Please, if you have not subscribed, don't forget to click that subscribe button. If you like my tutorial, thumbs up, and also watch the tutorial to the end so that you can learn one or two things from this video. If you are just stopping by, thank you so much for watching, and let's get started. I just want to show you how to create a pattern paper. If you have your original pattern paper, all you have to do, place a tracing paper on top of it and trace it all out and cut it out. You don't have to cut your original pattern paper. That means you have to keep making a different pattern paper all the time. The most easiest way, place a tracing paper and just trace it all out. For the sizing, mine is 1.75 inch. For the front, the same thing, 1.75 inch. For the front, I add 4 inches to it because I'm going to plait it. So when you place your pattern paper on your fabric, put it on fold. So for the back, you also do the same thing, put it on fold. For the side seam of the pattern paper, I extend it, so you also have to add inches to it. So for the top is like an A-line top. For the back, I just cut it I just cut it out, and for the back I'm going to attach like a skirt, and I will gather it at the mid part of the fabric. So this is how the pattern paper is, and you can always add your ruffles, your sleeve, or you want to make it sleeveless, depends on how you want your dress to look. So I just want to explain that to you. This is how I make this pattern paper. You don't have to keep making new pattern paper. This is how the front or the top will look. So I place a pin right here. This is where I'm going to start pleating. So what you have to do when you cut your pattern paper, take it to your hand, but make sure you press along to know the mid part of the top you're making. So this is where I'm going to pleat. I will just take it like this and place it at the mid part and take that pin, and I will just pin that in place. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. Just take it like this and place it at the mid part. Take that pin and pin that in place. So what you have to do, take it to your sewing machine. Just give it a tiny stitch just to secure the plate in place. I have top stitch. The next thing that you have to do, you take the back of the same top. From the very top of the neckline, I measured down 3.5 inches. So you're going to take your scissors and just cut it all the way to the end. And don't forget to also cut facing for the back. You also cut facing for the front. So when you're cutting the facing for the front, just cut it very short, not long like this. Just cut it short. So the front, this is how it is, the front facing of this top that I'm making. You see, it's short, it's not long like the top dress. So take your scissors, just cut 3.5 inches. You put the both shoulder seam together and pin it in place. So once you have done pinning, take it to your sewing machine, stitch the both shoulder seam, and you also take the facing of the top. So this is the facing of the front and the facing for the back. Also put the both shoulder seam together. Don't forget, also measure 3.5 inches and just take your scissors and cut that out. I will just pin it. I can cut it out later. Once you have done pinning, also take it to your sewing machine, stitch the both shoulder seam together. I have top stitched the shoulder seam, and I also do the same thing with the facing. I just take it to my ironing board, press the seam apart. The next thing that you have to do, put them together. So you're going to pin around the neckline. Make sure both front are facing each other. I have pinned around the neckline. I haven't pinned the center back. Before you pin the center back, don't forget you have to place your button loop inside and then pin it all around and take it to your sewing machine and stitch it all around. So I am using this cotton braided rope for my button loop. This is how it is, like this. So I will just place it inside like this. The raw edges will be showing outside. I will place it inside like this and then pin it all in place. So when I'm going to stitch, I will take it to my sewing machine. I will just stitch around the neckline and also the center back. When you get to the button loop, back stitch 2 to 3 times to secure the button loop. So go ahead and stitch the neckline and the center back together. I just finished stitching around the neckline and the center back. The next thing that you have to do, take your scissors, snip around the neckline and also with the center back. So when you're going to snip where you see the 4 corners here, just snip very close to your stitch thread. But be careful, don't snip your stitch thread like that. And then just continue snipping it all around. Just finish pressing along the neckline and the center back. The next thing that you have to do, you take the basket. This is the back of the skirt. Is unfold. Take it to your sewing machine. Set it to the longest stitch and stitch along your skirt. And then you set your sewing machine to the longest stitch. Stitch along the ruffle's head, the bottom edge, fold it like this and then fold it again and top stitch all around. I have hemmed the ruffles, and I also stitch my gather stitch thread, and I stitch my gather stitch thread on the skirt. The next thing that you have to do, put them together, put your top together, not the mid part. So put them together like this so that you know the mid part of the top. Once you have done that, then take your skirt, place it on top of it, on top of that mid part. So this is the mid part of the skirt. Just put them together and pin that in place. And make sure both front of the skirt and both front of the top are facing each other. When you're putting them together, do not separate the facing. Both the facing and your made fabric, just put them together like this, and then pin the both side seam together. Just pin that and come to the other side. Also pin the both side together. The next thing that you have to do, you have to gather it. Make sure all the gather are in the mid part of this top that you're making. Not the gather don't have to be here. The gather, you just push them all the way to the center, and you push all the gather to the center. Once you have done it like this, you see the way it is, all the gather are in the mid part. Just push them to that mid part, and then take your pin and just continue pinning all together. And you will do the same thing on this other side. Once you have done pinning, take it to your sewing machine. Just top stitch all around. Just give it a top stitch all around. Once you have done that, then take out your gather stitch thread, and you can also take it to your overlocker, overlock the raw edges, or use zigzag to overlock the raw edges. So I want to show you how to gather your ruffles on your armhole. First thing that you have to do, measure where you want your ruffles to end. So I measure from the shoulder seam down 3 inches. From the shoulder seam down, again I measure down to this other side 3 inches. So I do the same thing on the both armhole. So once you have done that, then put your ruffles together. So put your ruffles together like this. So you know the center of the ruffles, and then place it at the shoulder seam. Place it like this at the shoulder seam. Just pin that in place. And you will come to the 3 inches that you marked. Place your ruffles like this. Push this out. And just pin that in place. So what you're going to do, just take your gather stitch thread, you gather it one side like this, and then you also pin the other side. Place it like this. Pin that in place. So you also gather the other side. Pin that in place. fix your ruffles and just pin all together. And you also do the same thing on this side. Once you have done pinning it together and you gather your ruffles, take it to your sewing machine, top stitch from the beginning of the armhole all the way to the end. And you also come to this other side, you do the same thing. I have top stitched the ruffles and also top stitched the skirt on the top dress. And I take it to my overlock. I just overlock the raw edges and I press the seam towards the bodies. The next thing that you have to do, you take your sleeve, make sure to snip the sleeve head and take your top, the sides, the shoulder seam of your top, place the sleeve head on top of it. And then you take your pin, you just pin that in place. So what you have to do, you're going to pin your sleeve along the armhole. You have done pinning, take it to your sewing machine, top stitch all together. You can see the way I pin the sleeve. Make sure you push the ruffles towards the bodies and push the ruffles towards the bodies when you're pinning. And this is how it is. Just pin them all around and take it to your sewing machine. Just top stitch all together. Once you have done that, take it to your overlock. I just overlock the raw edges. If you don't, use zigzag to overlock the raw edges. I have top stitched the sleeve. This is how it finally look. The next thing that you have to do, just put them together like this. And I also overlock the raw edges of the facing. Just put them together like this and take your pin and pin along. Once you have done pinning, just take it to your sewing machine, stitch from the sleeve all the way down to the side seam. Stitch from the side seam of the sleeve all the way down to the side seam of the dress. I have top stitched the side seam of the sleeve and the side seam of the top dress. This is how it looks. I just take it to my ironing board, press it very nice. And for the sleeve, I fold inside 1/2 inch. As you can see right here, I also overlock the raw edges, so when I'm going to stitch, I will stitch very close to the overlocked stitch thread all around. So fold inside 1/2 inch and take it to an ironing board. Make sure you press along, and you also do the same thing on the other sleeve. Once you have done with that, then you can take your top to your sewing machine and fold it, and then fold it again and give it a top stitch. That means you're hemming your top dress. But if I'm going to hem this dress, I will first take it to my overlocker, overlock the raw edges, and then fold inside 1/2 inch and top stitch. Just the same way I would top stitch the sleeve, the same way I would top stitch the bottom edge. Once you have also done with that, the back of the dress, this is the skirt, just take it to your sewing machine and top stitch all the way to the end. So your top is finally ready and is very, very beautiful. Then you can use hand stitch to stitch your button right here, and this is your button loop, and just place it in like that. So it's super easy to make, not so difficult. Thank you so much for watching my video, and please support by subscribing, and you all should have a beautiful day. Bye.